Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you for joining me after my very long absence. You guys are probably wondering what happened to me. Well, mostly a lot of personal stuff, which I will not burden you with. But I am back for the time being. I don't know how regularly I'll be able to post, just because I have a lot going on. But the good news is that Reforged development is now back in full swing. We're working on patch 0.97. which is currently being tested, and what exactly is going to be in patch 0.97, I'm not 100% sure of. You will get a lot of reskins for factions like Rohan. I believe there's some new armor upgrades for Rune that are coming out as well. Whether or not you will see Ered Luin and Dol Guldur, the new factions, in this patch, remains to be seen. I don't think you will, but hey, anything is possible. I wouldn't rule it out. Other than that, there are going to be some new conquest maps as well, and actually, on that note, we have a conquest tournament that is beginning on the Third Age Reforged Discord. So you'll be seeing a lot of that. It's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be playing on a lot of different conquest maps, and there's going to be a brand new map for the finals, which I'll be making especially for that. I won't give too much away, but I can tell you that it is going to be based on the conflict between the White Council and the fall of Dol Guldur. So that's going to be fun. But in any case, let's take a look at some of the army comps now, and then we can get into this 1v1 testing battle. The first army we have today is the forces of Isengard, being commanded by Solomon, of course one of our testers. He's bringing some Uruk-hai Raiders, and I think... Actually, I will preface this by saying that I'm going to go into some depth when it comes to the new stats and the new units, and there's going to be a lot of discussion about balance philosophy and things like that, so if you guys are not interested in that at all, I am of course going to put some timestamps down for you in the description, and you can just skip over all of that. I don't recommend that you do that though, because there is some interesting stuff, and it is always interesting to hear what people think about it. But yeah, let's get back to the army comps. So Solomon is bringing some Uruk-hai Raiders, nice and sexy. They got a new skin in the 0.96.1 hotfix patch. I got some Trolls of the White Hand here, still looking a little bit janky. Ooh, a little lag there. They look funny right now, but they're getting a brand new model, sort of more akin to what the Uruk-hai or the Troll Drummers have right now. So it is going to look better, and their shoulders are, of course, not going to be so strange. I think there's some skeleton issues there, but Crimson Bahalid, I'm sure we'll fix that in the future. Got some Dunlending Clansmen as well. A note on Spearmen is that they actually got a little bit of extra spear bonus against cavalry. So even your low-tier spears can be a danger to cavalry units that come into contact with them. One of our testers actually learned a very shocking lesson the hard way when he charged into the Runic Clan Guard with his knights, and the knights were very quickly dispatched when they were left in close quarters with those spears for an extended period of time. So they got wrecked. So cavalry should fear their spear units now. The idea, again, is to try and make infantry a little bit more impactful. We have a lot of cavalry-heavy builds that have been coming out in the meta lately. This won't eliminate them, but it will make it a little bit more dangerous when you're playing against a infantry faction or an infantry build. So yeah, fun little news there. Dunlending Clansmen. Got some Uruk-hai crossbows out in front, looking real nice with that. I think the helmet was done by Cowering Coma, who is kind of our resident whiz kid when it comes to retexturing things, but it might have also been done by Kuro. But in any case, a couple units there of the Uruk-hai crossbows. Got some Uruk-hai archers as well, sharing the same model as the other lighter Uruk-hai units, like the Reavers and the Raiders. So I believe there's 2-3 units of the Uruk-hai archers. Got some more Raiders over here, some more Dunlending Clansmen, and a solid core in the center of Uruk-hai infantry. Got a lot of pikemen, and I think there's some Uruk-hai infantry, just regular infantry mixed in there as well, although I could be wrong about that. And finally we have the Isengard Ballista. Previously this was available to basically all of the Orcish factions. Now it is an Isengard only thing. It has gotten a little bit more expensive, and it might get a little bit more expensive as time goes on, because it is a very powerful tool. I don't want to... One of the suggestions we had from one of the testers was to decrease the ammunition of this unit, because it can be very powerful in field battles, but I don't want to destroy its functionality in siege battles, so it might just get a little bit more expensive at the moment. It costs about 1,000, so it might go up to as high as 1,200. Just a consideration there, but it is a really strong tool, and the model is... it's awesome. It's unique to Isengard, and again, made by Crimson Bahalid, one of our developers. And got some more Raiders there, and then we have some Champions of the White Hand. I don't think he's got any hidden units. Actually, he's got one unit over here. This is a unit of Nazakai, and I think this is the General's bodyguard. It's hard to tell. The General looks like the Nazakai, but I'm pretty sure this is his General right here. So that's it for Isengard. Let's go ahead and let's see what his opponent has brought to the battle today. Across the field from Solomon, we have the forces of the Kingdom of Arthedain being commanded by Tundra's Fox. he's brought some Dunedain scouts, and actually, let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that are coming to Arthedain as we go along here. Most of them are centered on their cavalry, so Arthedain, as I'm sure many of you who play the mod know, very, very much centered around their cavalry. They're kind of like... I use this comparison for a lot of factions, but it does hold true in this case as well, in that they are a little bit like Macedon. They've got professional frontline troops, a lot of pikes, and they also have some really strong cavalry units, but for the most part those cavalry units have previously been Lancers, with the exception of the Knights of Inuminas. But now the Lancer debuff against cavalry, previously it was -3, now it is -2. Just because we have a lot of anti-cavalry units that are coming into the game, and again, the spear units got a little bit more stronger against cavalry as well. So now the Lancer Cav units are a little tiny bit better in close quarters with other cavalry units, and yeah, a lot of them actually went down in price as well. But Arthedain is getting some other changes, but we'll discuss those as we go along. Dunedain Scouts here getting a bit cheaper in the patch. I think they are down from like 825 or something like that to 700. So they are quite fragile, but they have great accuracy and great damage as well. But yeah, so they're a little bit more affordable and a little bit more useful because of that. And then we have the Dunedain Mounted Company, who previously used to be a gigantic Lancer unit. They used to have 90 men in their Lancer unit, which was cool. It worked out really well for Arthedain because they needed this strong, quick-moving Lancer unit, but it is weird that Dunedain would be 90 strong in a unit, much less all fully mounted. So I've decided to make them into melee cavalry. So they're kind of a lighter melee cavalry. They still have quite a lot of speed, about 1.2 speed, but they are significantly improved. They have great melee defense, really strong attack. They are a little bit low on armor value, however. They might get an armor upgrade, but at the moment they currently don't have it, so they clock in at about 4 armor, but they have great melee defense and I think like 10 attack plus like 5 against cavalry, so it's significant. But yeah, they're not a Lancer unit anymore. So their 615 charge bonus has actually been shifted on to to what was previously a lower tier cavalry unit, that being the Fornostarine Knights. So the Fornostarine Knights now a little bit more heavier hitting. Speaking of heavy hitting things, we've got the Dunedain Peacekeepers, previously a spear unit, now they are a one-handed axe unit. So Arthedain finally, at long last, has gotten themselves a kind of mid-tier damaging infantry unit, which is previously something that they lacked. They had like men-at-arms and I think the two-handed swordsmen, and that was basically the extent of their infantry damage for the most part. But now they have these guys. And again, following the same philosophy, lightly armored, great melee defense, average shield, but really high damage as well. Moving on over here, we have the Wardens of the North, very strong unit. These guys are AP archers, and they're a little bit better armored than the rest of their Dunedain brethren. And then over here we have another unit of Dunedain Peacekeepers, and I know for sure that Arthedain has a couple units of Dunedain Trollhunters hanging around here as well, who are a two-handed axe unit, but they also throw javelins, so they're a nice little kind of multi-tool that you can use in a variety of different situations. Over here we got another unit of the Dunedain Mounted Company, and then we can move on now to his front line, composed of Evenham Spearmen and Arthedain Pikemen. One of the things to note about infantry across the board is that there is, or rather there has been, a fatigue trait overhaul. So previously, fatigue traits like hardy and very hardy, which affect how quickly a unit will lose fatigue in combat or while moving around the battlefield, they were kind of all over the place. So I've brought a little bit of order to that. Most human factions and a lot of orcish factions have hardy. Hardy is by far the strongest trait, and it's a middle-of-the-road kind of thing. So certain units will not be able to run around for quite as long, but there is an upside to this as well. In that elite units and other factions like the elves and the dwarves will be a lot more distinct and kind of make up a little bit, especially the elves in particular, for their lack of numbers with just their sheer stamina and their ability to hold a line for a really long time. One of the other things to note here, and I'm getting a little bit off topic here, this doesn't really have so much to do with Arthedain in particular, but the heat stat has been, for the time being at least, completely removed. So previously heat would affect how quickly units would lose fatigue in hot environments, depending mostly on their armor type. So heavier armors would fatigue quicker in desert environments, which is, it's a cool thing. It's a cool mechanic. It makes sense, it's kind of realistic, but I also feel it's a little bit janky. It would really suck if you had a heavily armored force and your effectiveness was greatly reduced simply because the host picked a map that happens to have a lot of sun, or it's got like desert tile or something like that. It's not really something that's in your control. So the heat stat has gone out the window, but terrain bonuses have been reinstituted. So units like the pikes here, for example, for Arthedain, and just pikes in general, this applies to more than just Arthedain, so don't mistake me. Pikes in general will not fight as well in forests. In fact, they get a significant debuff. It's, I believe, 10% of a unit's charge damage plus 20% of their base attack. So it scales depending on the unit. Lancers obviously being a little bit more proportionally affected by this because of their higher charge values, and the higher tier Lancers tend to have pretty high damage as well. So Lancers and Knights like that, they won't, and Polearms as well, pretty well across the board. Polearms and Halberds won't fight as well in the forest, but they will fight a little bit better in scrub terrain, which is not the terrain that you see before you. There are only 4 different terrain types, and I chose scrub because it's the closest thing to a field battle, so an open field that the 4 terrain options afforded me. So heavy infantry and heavy units in general are going to fight a little bit better in scrub territory, whereas tiles that wouldn't necessarily favor a heavy infantry formation or make it a little bit harder to move around and fight, like snow, for example, is going to favor light infantry. So the bonuses aren't huge. It's like 1 damage here, maybe 2 in the kind of extreme. But other units are more proportionally affected by that, especially specialist units. But I've talked about this enough. Let's move on now to Arthedain's army comps. This is why you guys are here. So we got some Evendim Spearmen backed up with some Evendim Pikemen, or rather some Arthedain Pikemen. A very big, strong, scary line of that, composed of spears and pikes, which is a really favored strategy. There's like cavalry and archer-heavy strategies that are really strong in the meta right now, and then there's the pike strategy, which a lot of people favor as well, because it's a little bit easier to kind of work around a massive wall of spears and to do all your fighting and micro on the flanks rather than having to worry about your infantry. But we move on now to the final part of Tundra Fox's army. We have the Evendim Archers, a ton of Evendim Archers. I believe there's at least 2, maybe 3 here. And I think that's it for his army. I'm pretty sure I got the hidden units as well. Unless maybe he's got a pocket unit of Dunedain Rangers around here. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get this battle started. So as you would expect, the Isengard Ballista fairly well perched here, although a little bit precarious. He might just end up clipping the back of his own line here if he's not too careful. Firing over top of his line. Let's see what happens here. I mean, this could potentially be disastrous. This is asking for a bad thing to happen to you here. Oh, and there goes Isengard's own general. In the opening volley of the game, Solomon blows away his own general due to a bit of unfortunate positioning here. So the Isengard forces not off to a great start, unfortunately. Their skirmishers trading reasonably. I would expect would trade reasonably well with the Evendim Archers. The Arthedain main body moving forward. A lot of spears and a lot of pikes there backing each other up. It is quite the anvil for which the Isengard to break themselves against. Meanwhile, over on his wings, you can see a large contingent of Dunedain cavalry here. 2 units of the Dunedain Mounted Company, so the full complement of Dunedain Mounted Company, along with some Dunedain scouts. And a lot of wargs here from Isengard, which is interesting. Although I guess he had to fit the Isengard Ballista in somewhere, so a lot of cost has been cut here on the cavalry side of things. Although luckily, Isengard does have their trolls here. The trolls of the White Hand do have a small bonus against cavalry. I think it's about 5, which is decent, but for a unit that has really high attack like this, it's obviously not as big as it would be for a unit with a little bit smaller attack. So yeah, they do get a relatively small bonus against cavalry. Dunedain scouts coming in from behind. Ooh, more friendly fire here. Solomon just pokes holes in his own lines. Very unfortunate, but he is doing some serious work here against the Isengard catapult. Oh, look at that. They got some hobbits in there as well. Might be some hobbit infantry. Yeah, why? Yeah, what do you know? The hobbits can hide everywhere as well. Oh man, that thing is just devastating. It is quite limited in ammunition though, and to be fair, he's done a fair amount of damage to his own troops and blew away his own general, so a bit of a double-edged sword here, this Isengard Ballista. Ooh, nasty. Especially effective against the kind of strategy that the Arthedain troops have opted for here. With massed walls of infantry, artillery is going to be particularly effective against something like that. Although, to be fair, I think the artillery it's got about 12 ammo, so not as much as you would expect. Evendim Spearmen here first into contact with the enemy, the Dunlanding Clansmen, clashing with these militias here, Spearmen from Arthedain. Well, the Uruk-hai Archer is actually breaking in the face of that advance, which is kind of surprising. Arthedain continuing to move forward now, with our pikemen clashing with the Dunlanding Clansmen. The Unending Clansmen losing men every moment here in combat with the Arthedain front line, as you would expect. Let's go ahead and let's slow things down just a little bit here, because there is a lot going on the flanks as well. Looks like the Dunai Mountain Company are in the process of running down these Uruk-hai archers, which is a pretty good idea. Make sure they don't come back. It's a bit of a lucky break, I suppose, with those Uruk-hai archers having broken after not much contact with the enemy. So the Arthurian players definitely capitalizing on that. Trolls of the White Hand here, ready to come in like a wrecking ball, unless these Dunai Mountain Company get themselves out of there. And they're going to be able to scoot away. These guys are quite slow. That's kind of the big trade-off to these units, is that they are very strong trolls with a bonus against cavalry, but they're quite slow, as you can see. So it's quite hard for them to keep up to the Swift Mountain Company on those little legs of theirs. Over here, it looks like the Dunedain units might have gotten caught out by some of the Nazakai, or rather the mounted Nazakai, also known as the champions of the White Hands. Dunedain scouts have managed to skirt away, however, and they are returning fire as those champions of the White Hand attempt to flee. Meanwhile, over here on the front line, the Isengarders, the main body of their force, the Uruk-hai Raiders and the Uruk-hai Pikemen, joining battle against the forces of Arthedain. Nice little sweeping shot there across the battlefield, as both sides of these rather sizable armies clash together in the center. Meanwhile, over on the wing, it looks like this is where it's really going to be decided. The Uruk-hai crossbows positioning themselves into a position where they can put some devastating, enfilading fire into the Arthedain line here, which is so far going toe-to-toe with the Isengarders, though they are being slightly overlapped here by a little bit of a larger Arthedain, or rather Isengard line, and so on their left wing they are starting to lose ground a little bit. Over here, though, it looks like the reserves, the Dunedain Peacekeepers, have been drawn off into a fight against Uruk-hai Raiders and Uruk-hai Pikemen, as Solomon has sent a significant contingent of his forces around the Arthedain left wing in an attempt to encircle the army, at least partially. Dunedain Peacekeepers doing their best, but against the range of those pikemen, they're not going to have a good time at all. The Uruk-hai Raiders would normally be easy prey for a unit like this, but in tandem with their pike brothers, it's not so much fun. Archery at arms here, taking it on the chin from the Uruk-hai archers. Some Unending Clansmen in the back, I think, moving in to reinforce the front line. Meanwhile, the Evendim archers, with their 4 missile damage, doing their best, but it is ultimately not going to do too much against anything that is not the Unending Clansmen. Uruk-hai Raiders have nearly, or rather the Uruk-hai Pikemen have nearly double their attack value in armor, so they will stand up to that quite nicely. Over in the back here, you can see some Dunedain scouts being brought to bear against what appears to be the rear of the Uruk-hai, so far victorious Uruk-hai units. Dunedain Peacekeepers still holding the line, but they've taken such grievous casualties at this point that they are potentially in danger of routing. Champions of the White Hand coming around, although they have taken just catastrophic damage. I don't really know from what. Maybe a little bit of friendly fire or something from the Uruk-hai archers or from some of the crossbows. Dunedain Mounted Company charging into the Uruk-hai archers. Let's get down and dirty with it, as these mounted warriors charge into these more or less helpless archer units. They doing their best. Over in the back here, the Isengard Ballista has been silenced by the Dunedain Mounted Company, although at this point, how much ammunition could it really have had left, and they are extremely out of position as well. So it looks like Solomon kind of saw what was happening and maybe tried to lead the Mounted Company on a bit of a wild goose chase with his ballista crew. Might have been out of ammunition, in which case that would be a very clever use of his resources. Meanwhile, over here, Uruk-hai crossbows, I assume, yes, this devastation here has been caused by them. A lot of dead Arthedain forces. And we got here just in time to see them begin to break. A rear charge here into the Arthedain center is potentially going to evaporate the entire line. Arthedain is really in a lot of trouble here, not really having been able to use their cavalry against the back of the Isengarder line. They've been far too occupied on their wings, especially with that flanking movement that Solomon sent around on the Arthedain left. It really bought him a lot of time to win this engagement here in the center. So the Isengarders absolutely massacring these poor Arthedain soldiers here. The Uruk-hai Raiders are far more expensive units, so they are definitely superior pikemen. So the Dunedain Troll Slayers have come out to play, however. And this is where Arthedain is really going to shine in some of their Dunedain units. Dunedain are a speciality of Arthedain, along with their cavalry. As you can imagine, in particular, the Dunedain cavalry is very strong. But their Dunedain units are definitely nothing to be trifled with. But unfortunately, they've been kept away from the main engagement, so Isengard was able to get the better of Arthedain. Dunedain Mounted Company charging into the rear here against pikemen and raiders. It's not really the best use of this melee cavalry, but they do have enough damage that charging into the rear against units like the Raiders, for example, well, it is going to make a difference. You can see quite a lot of dead Isengarders there. Now the Isengarders are victorious on the Arthedain left wing, and they're moving to completely encircle what remains of the Arthedain center and their right. And this is going to be all she wrote for Arthedain, unless they can pull out something miraculous here. Well, what do you know? We got some Grey Company. If anybody can turn this around, it's the Grey Company. Mounted Rangers. Excellent in this kind of situation. You can see them just wreaking havoc on the Isengard's back lines. Although, is it going to be enough? Those percentages are quite far away from one another. Ooh, another volley there, ripping through these massed Isengard forces. It really does make a difference. Look at that. Brought it up by a few percentage points. Meanwhile, what remains of the Isengard flanking movement on the shattered remnants of the Arthedain left are looking to move in against even in March. Just put a little bit of pressure on that Arthedain back line, maybe stop some of these archer units from firing. Although it looks like maybe they've run out of ammunition, or maybe that's just because they're being attacked by the Dunlending clansmen. But they are being held in place here by the Dunlending clansmen. There's still quite a lot of Isengarders over here as well. A lot of Uruk-hai crossbows, yet another unit of Uruk-hai crossbows, and yeah, a lot of missile units, some Uruk-hai archers as well. So the back lines here are definitely compromised for Arthedain, just as they are for the forces of Isengard. Although Isengard, it has to be said, is looking much better than Arthedain is in the infantry fight. Some more breaking here from the Arthedain pikemen as they are nearly completely encircled, and the rest of their brothers have melted away under the pressure of Saruman's hordes. These Arthedain pikemen now fleeing for the hills. Not a very close game at this juncture, although you know, there's still some potential for it to turn around, especially with those Grey Company. I want to know where they are. So, Mounted Company looks like they're breaking off, having had enough of the fight. Wardens of the North here firing point blank into these Uruk-hai pikemen, trying to kill as many of them as we can. But ultimately, those Uruk-hai pikemen are going to be able to close the gap. And the Wardens of the North are, well, against the pikemen, the Wardens of the North are a far superior unit with their 2 HP and their amazing stats. But the pikemen do have range, as you would expect from a unit that has a gigantic spear like this. So that will be interesting. And of course, there's still the rest of the Isengarders that are going to be coming in from the rear once they dispatch the remnants of the Evening Marchers. What do you got here? Some Dunai Mounted Company. A very healthy unit. Going after these Uruk-hai crossbows. Unfortunately, Solomon left them out here in the open. And the Dunedain this is a really good litmus test for the Dunedain cavalry. You can see that they're just hacking these guys to bits here. Really strong damage. Even without their cavalry bonus, they are still, as I said, about 10 damage. And that is more than enough to pass through the fairly meager defenses of these Uruk-hai crossbows. What do we got going on over here? Looks like some Uruk-hai raiders trying to get a piece of the Mounted Company. Dunedain Troll Slayers over here doing what they do best, fighting against the Trolls of the White Hand. And a little bit of backup here in the form of the London Clansmen, but it looks like this elite unit is going to be able to fight their way through. I think there's still another unit hiding around here somewhere. So Solomon's forces are just all over the place at this point. He's won in multiple different areas of the battlefield against Arthedain, but the result is that his forces are quite spread out. You can see a big clump here, another clump over here, and another one being absolutely massacred by these cavalry over on this end. So you can see that Tundra's Fox is in a good position to defeat his enemy in detail. By far, the Isengarders outnumber what remains of the Arthedain army, but if they can keep them isolated like this and just kind of gnaw at the edges, then they may be able to bring this game back and potentially pull out a come-from-behind victory. Over here, you got some Dunedain Troll Slayers who it looks like still have some ammunition. I don't know what Tundra's Fox is doing here. Now, they do have an opportunity to toss into this gigantic blob here as they focus down the Wardens of the North. I really think that he should take advantage of this, and I want to see if he does. Nope, it doesn't look like it. A little bit of questionable decision-making here on the part of Tundra's Fox. There's definitely a huge opportunity here to destroy a very large amount of Arthedain infantry. What do we got in the back here? Oh, I see. Dunedain scouts still on the field. Firing into the Isengarders as they bunch themselves up around the Wardens of the North. Now, Solomon is he's a very good player. I've seen him post a lot of battle results, and I've seen some of his replays. He definitely knows what he's doing, but I think maybe there's a little bit of overconfidence at work here. As he is kind of bunching up a little bit against one small unit of Wardens of the North, and is actually going to give the Arthedain forces an opportunity here to potentially pull this game back. Devastating volley here into the rear of the Isengard forces, and I think Solomon has realized his predicament. He's going to charge forward against the Uruk-hai crossbows. Let's see if they get one more volley off, and they do. I think a lot of that was directed at the Nausicaa, who they have done quite a lot of damage to. More cavalry coming in over here. A lot of mounted skirmishers really making themselves felt on this battlefield. Great Company in particular. Look at the damage that they can do. Enfilading fire against a pike unit like this, it's just so beautiful. It's not doing as much as it could, given that it's only 5 damage, and the Uruk-hai pikemen, I believe, have about 9 or so armor. But it is taking a toll, especially against the Uruk-hai raiders. I think they might actually rout if this pressure keeps up. Ooh, what do we have over here? Some pikemen getting a hold of the Great Company. Oh, that is so painful. Thunderous Fox really needs to be careful here. Or those Great Company are going to be driven off the field, and I think this is going to be the end of the Great Company. The companions of Aragorn getting themselves caught out against pikemen and ultimately routed. That is very unfortunate. That was a big ace in the hole, and now Thunderous Fox has lost them. Dunite Scouts still around, however, and the Dunite Troll Slayers, with their assistance, are really putting the hurt onto the remaining Isengards. Let's take a look at the percentages here. They have vastly evened out. I think we were previously at like almost a 20% difference, and now there is only a mere difference of 7%. Dunite Scouts here charging in against Spearmen, but honestly not a good idea. A lot of them are going to die in the retreat and in that bold but ultimately foolhardy charge. Although, only one died. That's quite surprising. And they managed to rout the Dunlending Clansmen. Oh, what do you know? And now Thunderous Fox is going to circle back, get a piece of those Dunlending Clansmen, make sure that they do not come back. Thunderous Fox doing a great job here, pulling this game back from the brink, and dealing Isengard some serious damage here. It's not quite at the point where Solomon won't be able to pull the game back. Not quite at the point of no return here, but yeah, Thunderous Fox definitely edging his opponent towards the abyss. Dunite Mounted Company here, not very many of them left, and their small unit here, looks like they're going to get a piece of the raiders charging in from behind. They're going to flatten that unit, even though they are melee cavalry. But they are going to come up against the pikes. Oh, flee! Flee, you fools! Fly, you fools, as Gandalf would say. They managed to get out of there after having suffered some fairly light casualties. A lot of pikemen left, though, and that's really the thing that's kind of keeping Solomon in the game at this point. The fact that he has so many pike units left. Some Nausicaa in there, along with some Uruk-hai crossbows. Mounted Company doing their best. Those Nausicaa are just countercharging, though. If they get a piece of those Mounted Company, they will die very, very fast. Dunite Troll Slayers, they still have ammo. They do not. Unfortunate for him. Dunite Scouts still around. Small unit of Scouts here as well. I wonder if the Great Company came back. Well, I guess not. 90 to 94, though. Really got to hand it to Thunderous Fox. Well, I say that, and then he charges headlong with cavalry into the front of pikes. But you got to hand it to him. Up until maybe about the last like 3,000 or so frames, Thunderous Fox was on the back foot. He was getting absolutely hammered by Isengard early on. He did not have any artillery, whereas Isengard had a very strong piece of artillery, and he took a lot of casualties on the approach. But damn, has he pulled it back. So big kudos to him for some solid tactics here that has brought him a lot of success. Oh no, the Mounted Company against the Nausicaa and those nearby pikes. Those Mounted Company have just been so slippery. More Dunite Scouts over there. Dunite Troll Slayers. Oh, they still got ammo. Ooh, getting a piece of the Nausicaa and those pikes. Oh, if they just had a few more volleys, they could keep this up. It looks like they're out of ammunition completely. Now, if I was facing down a pike unit like this, I would probably spread out my formation so that my units wrap around the pikes rather than trying to take them on from the front. I think that would probably result in a lot more quickly dispatching the Uruk-hai units. Oh man, almost on the verge of routing there, but the Nausicaa are keeping these Uruk-hai units in the fray. I believe they do inspire. Oh, but so close, almost a mass rout there. I believe the Dunite Troll Slayers also cause fear as well. So that was it was a nice try. Normally you don't want to run your horsemen into giant pointy sticks, but in that case, with a fear-causing unit really giving these guys the business, I think it was a good gambit. It was an educated guess. And if he'd have routed them there, it would have been all over. Let's see what we got left. 2-9 Scouts. Yeah, not really too many. A few stragglers out here, but honestly, the Dunite Mounted Company will dispatch these raiders very quickly. And now they have routed. So all that Solomon has left, his final hope for victory, rests with his Uruk-hai pikemen, who are being pelted right now by a fairly small but still significant unit of Dunedain scouts. Although I would definitely be careful. A little bit of friendly fire here. You don't want to take these units for granted. They do have HP, the Dunedain Troll Slayers, but they're quite lightly armored. So a 7 missile damage attack from these horse archers will, in all likelihood, shave off one of their HP. And that's definitely not what you want to do. Let's go ahead and fast forward here. Just witness this last stand. It looks like the Troll Slayers managed to wrap around since the victory is certain. Solomon's trying to kind of even things out a little bit here. Another charge from the Mounted Company, but it looks like they're pretty well going to get destroyed as they try to retreat. Those Dunedain units doing their best to even the scales, but I think the Troll Slayers might end up being overwhelmed at this point. Well, let's go ahead and fast forward and let's see what happens here. Yep, still firing. Not many pikemen left. There's maybe 30 or so pikemen. I don't think there's any Troll Slayers left. I think the last one just fell, which only gives him 5 Arthedain scouts, or Dunedain scouts, to combat all of these remaining Uruk-hai pikemen. Not much of an army left from the hordes of Saruman. Let's go ahead and just take a quick look over the battlefield here. It's very, very bloody indeed. Well played to both players, and especially to Tundra's Fox, who took a losing situation and almost pulled out a victory. Gotta hand it to him. And there we have it, the last Dunedain. It's like the one survivor of this army routing off the field to tell the king of the horrifying defeat that they suffered here in the not-so-frozen lake bed. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was worth the wait. There is going to be some more in 0.96.1 battles coming out. Many of you have sent me battles, and I do promise to try and get to as many of them as I can. But again, I do have a lot going on. And suffice it to say that it is important stuff to me. So yeah, maybe it'll slow down a little bit, but I'm going to try and get as much out as I can for you guys, and especially now that the patch is coming out, I'm going to try and provide you with as much information as possible, collect as much feedback as I possibly can. If you guys are interested in helping us test the patch, because that is the most useful way that you can help get the patch closer to release, and to also is make it as good as you can, is to come and play the mod with us, play the mod with the testers, and get a good sense of kind of where where factions stand, where the way the unit matchups work, and things like that. And yeah, and then basically tell us what you think about it. So I invite you all to come and join us. I hope to see you on the Reforged Discord. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay, everybody. Bye-bye.